At 28 years old, I was shot and paralyzed from the chest down. I had two options. I could stop and let the things I cannot control me, or I could move forward and put my energy into things that would improve my life and those around me. I chose to move forward and surround myself with risk takers, innovators, and leaders who've chosen the same path. Join us on the journey. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Forward with me, Derek Herrera, and my guest this week, Roy Tuscany. Roy Tuscany is the founder of the High Fives Foundation, which he started after his own personal experience with spinal cord injury and how devastating and challenging it was for him to move forward and find meaning and purpose after this injury. And so had a lot of great lessons that we chatted about. And through his experience, what he learned was that the network of mentors and advisors who would help guide him to live his life to the fullest potential after this life-changing injury was something that he wanted to replicate and scale, to be there for anyone else in the United States that suffers a spinal cord injury so that they're not alone in dealing with this very challenging circumstance by themselves. So if you're interested in learning more about High Fives Foundation, it's a 501c3 nonprofit organization still led by Roy and his team today. You can learn more at their website, which is www.highfivesfoundation.org. They still do amazing work getting people who've suffered these injuries out into adaptive sports and into the outdoors through recreational therapy and so many other things. They've created an amazing network of people that they've helped and continue to give back with these to this day. So if you're interested in learning more, check their website out. And if you enjoy this episode, please consider leaving us a 5-star review, comment, like and subscribe if you're on YouTube or Spotify. And hope you all have a great week. Look forward to sharing more of our Forward episodes with you here shortly. Roy, welcome to the show.
Derek, how are you today?
Doing great, thanks. Doing great. Truly a pleasure to have this time with you. Looking forward to catching up and sharing with listeners some of the amazing work that you're doing.
Thanks so much. It's great to be on this call, this video, whatever we're calling this, but more importantly, connecting with you.
Before we get into what you're doing now, would love to just kind of hear a little bit of the background and the story of your life, up to the point where you sustained an injury and how you recovered and moved forward from that.
Yeah, I grew up in Vermont as an only child and really found adventure in the outdoors. My parents grew up with the idea of the more time spent outside, the more adventure I would find, I think. And that definitely was the case. As growing up there, I fell in love with mountain biking and skiing and just adventuring outside. And it was just part of my spirit of who I was. And went up going to college and getting a mechanical engineering degree. And then, after spending so much time and focusing on this kind of regimented life of, 18, college, then this, it was like, hold on, let's go outside again, outside of what is kind of seen as this normalcy of life. And let's go out west and let's just go be a ski coach for 2 years and not have any expectations. And so I just went out west and I was a ski coach at Sugar Bowl Academy. It was a phenomenal job coaching kids that, are now coming back into my life now, almost, 16 years later. It's pretty cool to see them coming back, but that can be brought up later in the story. But, moving out west, I had the idea of the adventure that I found in Vermont was just going to be accelerated to bigger mountains and bigger things. And it sure was. Unfortunately, though, 2 years after being there, I was down in Mammoth and hit this jump that I'd hit a couple weeks prior, but this time went 130 feet on a 100-foot jump, came down from 30 feet in the air, and the resultant impact into that snow burst fractured my T12 and caused paralysis from the belly button down. Rushed, air flighted to the Trauma 2 hospital in Reno, renowned emergency surgery, stabilization of the spine, trying to relieve the pressure off from the catastrophic impact that I made into the snow. And from that was, the result of the, incomplete spinal cord injury that I was diagnosed with.
Wow. And so how old were you at that time?
I was 24 at that time. 24, 2006. Yeah, my 25th birthday was like 60 days after, no, it was like 90 days after it happened. So yeah, 24 at the time of the injury, approaching 25, hitting that quarter century mark, pretty bizarre too to have, it's in some pretty developmental years of life for folks as you transition from a teenager to an adult to like being on your own, and you're already struggling at that moment, trying to figure out where you fit in this world, and you add a life-changing injury on there. I really think it is something that doesn't really, you don't see the impact that it has on your life till so many years later.
Hmm. Yeah, I would agree. Yeah. And so you were in Reno at Renown and uh obviously started to rehab and recover. What was that like moving forward from that injury, and how did you make it through?
I think the thing I chose was community over, let's say, like shiny best facility in the country. I stayed in Reno. I had a great community here of support, and I think that really helped me along the lines of moving forward in a positive way of people being the most important medicine in my recovery. Looking back, would have been nice to go to a facility that had maybe some more experimental technology advancements to try to see how that could have helped the recovery. But I really feel like the community that I had here was so important to the medicine that I think healing is best done near home, and home is where you feel like you have the best support. And so I chose that in my recovery. It went well. Unfortunately, after I left, I had so many things go wrong. I had foot drop. I had to have reconstruction of my ankles and all these things, which really led to some, long lasting issues within my gait. I'm a walking para. When I walk, though, it is definitely not like I'm walking as the best person in the room. And I think sometimes, that is what that's from is that after I left that rehab facility, there was just so many things that came about that I just I didn't know what was going on, man. I mean, there is no guide to these spinal cord injuries, and I wish that like there was a foundation like High Fives, or at least someone that I could have chatted to know what was going on with my body.
Hmm.
Because like the only way to, in my opinion, to really get information about spinal cord injuries is like talking to those that have them. They're all
Yeah.
different. You can look at a medical book and they're probably 80% right, but like that last 20% is really hidden within the community that has them, and only them can
Yeah.
really share the true answers to those questions. And I think that's something that we don't find with other, like basic things. I think you find that within other types of life changing things. You
Hmm.
find that within those communities, but that's where I think the real information is talking to the folks that have
Yeah.
experienced it firsthand.
Yeah. Yeah. That's incredible. And I would agree with pretty much everything you just said. I had a similar experience. So when I had gotten injured, I came back and was at Bethesda at the Naval Hospital, and they said, "Hey, you can go to any facility you want in the country. Where do you want to go?" And I thought, because I didn't know much about the injury, or I didn't understand. I thought there would be. This was 2012, so I thought there'd be some sort of specialized equipment or advanced research or whatever it was going on. And so I chose to go to a center of excellence in the VA in Tampa, Florida. And then after a few months, I found out that there wasn't a lot they were going to do for me that I couldn't do at home. And so I had already uprooted. My wife moved out there to be with me. We were living in an apartment. We were actually in the hospital for 2.5 months, and then moved out into an apartment in town, and we're trying to do therapy and stuff there, but wasn't a lot going on. So I tried to get back home as quickly as possible. About 6 months after moved back, and then to your point of community, I wanted to get back to work and heal that way. And so what I did was I went back to work, trying to help out where I could, doing administrative tasks and things within the unit. But uh, that was the healing for me, was going back to being around the people I knew and had relationships with, and the environments that I was familiar with. And your point about the books on spinal cord injury, it's really kind of nefarious because there's not a ton of us, and it's a very widely distributed, like wide ranging injury that's different for everybody, right? They tell you everyone is different, you know the recoveries are different, injuries are different, secondary complications are different. So there's no way they can put it all in a book. And like you said, having people you can talk to is really the best way to learn. And I found that as well. Unfortunately for me, I was just talking about this with Elena, and I was initially very hesitant to reach out to anybody or to talk to anybody or get involved with new people who were injured because I kind of felt like it was accepting defeat, because in that initial, first year that I was injured, I was still hoping to just get up and walk, right, and just recover, and I wouldn't have to worry about it. And so that led me to a lot of issues like you had too, probably with the secondary complications, where I had things that were happening. I had no clue what was going on. Doctors really didn't know necessarily what was happening either, but any, paraplegic could have told me. They were like, oh yeah, well that's what this is. Or, if I would have just been open to the opportunity to learn from them. So
I don't know if it's so much being open. I think it's more like when you're ready. I think like, I don't know if it's defeat, but it's really like letting go of something and accepting um, a new title. And I don't know if we're always ready for that title. We, for so long, we strive for a title, especially within the military, especially, like you work up the ranking system for that title. And, as you continually grow, it's an achievement to grab that title. The problem with spinal cord injuries is they don't discriminate against anybody. I don't think any disability does, actually. Disabilities, they accept everyone. And that's a tough thing, because coming from an individual that's always strive for performance-based things, if you were a competitive skier like myself, or an individual that served our country like yours, it's looking to lead a group of folks. The last thing you want to do is all of a sudden say, hey, I'm a part of this spinal cord community, and I'm a part of something that I didn't choose to be a part of. I kind of have to accept that actions that I've taken have led me to be here. And I think that's one of the hardest processes, is like in life, you're always trying to achieve a title. Many folks are. I think there's some that have found peace with internally and they don't need that, but that's a whole nother conversation. But to accept that title of, spinal cord injury, disabled, adaptive, it's not something you usually achieve for. And so once you can accept that, like, this is your community and this is your world, and it's okay. It's okay to be uncomfortable with it too. I think that's really a big takeaway from, like, ready to reach out or to talk to others, is like, it takes that period of time to accept this title that unfortunately you didn't achieve to obtain. You were given to it in a non-discriminative way, and that is an unfortunate outcome of a spinal cord injury.
yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, and that's very insightful and eloquent way to describe it. So yeah, and so as you were recovering and moving forward, what were the next steps that how were things going, and what did you get involved with? Obviously, you'd created an amazing organization and created a community just like this, but how long after that, after you were injured, did you have the idea and start to work through that and put it to action?
Like right out of the gate, this really great guy by the name of Bill Hudson, who actually sits on my board of directors still to this date for High Fives. He started a foundation, or he didn't start a foundation. He was the executive director of the Sugar Bowl Community Foundation. And what he started, not a new foundation, he started an umbrella fund called Roy's Recovery Fund underneath that 501c3. And it allowed the parents of the team that I was coaching to donate. Majority of them from the Bay Area. A lot of them donating large chunks of change so that I could focus on recovery. And, at the end of this, and some great friends back in Vermont, I was able to, have 2 years worth of financial stability to just focus on my recovery. And while I was always updating and making sure people that supported me knew how I was progressing in my own recovery, I kind of felt empty. I mean, I was making, like, I think $12 an hour ski coaching and like $20 an hour banging nails. And all of a sudden people are giving, dollar placements in them that are much bigger than my paychecks are for the whole year. So this recovery, it really made me feel like, wow, these people really want me to see through this. And to me, that led me to the idea of, hey, like, pay it forward. Like, how many other folks that are going to fall into the same shoes that you do, that have these dreams of being in the outdoors and sustain a life changing injury, are going to all of a sudden feel like, life has struck them down? Will they have the same community that I have? Will they have a great group of friends that want to make sure that I have the stability to get through the process of this? I don't know if everyone does. And so that led me to the idea of, like, okay, like, let's pay this forward and let's see what happens. And let's create a foundation that did what these folks did for me, for someone. And the whole idea, the initial idea, was one person a year. Help one person a year find the funding they needed to get the recovery costs covered, and then do it again the next year. And that was the whole goal when I first started this with a group of friends. And we did that the first year, and then after one year it was a whole nother, it just started growing.
So awesome. And so that organization was High Fives Foundation?
So that's High Fives. Yeah, that's how it all
Nice.
started and everything. Started it back in 2009. I got hurt in '06. We did this event in 2008. I'd gone back to skiing. Excuse me. Whoa. The early kid. It got me right there. And me, I didn't have my afternoon 3 o'clock coffee that I'm usually required
Yeah.
to have at this point. Um, so in 2008, I had gone back to skiing. I had really focused hard, went back adaptive skiing, for tracking, which is, standing up, but I have poles with like little skis on the end of them for stability, balance, and also initiating and being able to stop. And so I got back to skiing, and that led me to believe, okay, let's throw a celebration for this. Let's throw an event. And we put on this event at Sugar Bowl. It caught a lot of eyes of folks and said, hey, what is this? What is this going to become? And that is how the idea of High Five started. It started with an event to celebrate skiing. And from that, it led to the creation of a nonprofit, a 501c3, that is, focused on preventing life changing injuries and providing resources and hope if they happen in the outdoors. 12 years now, nearly 500 athletes served. Athletes, anybody with a goal in the recovery process. It doesn't mean professional, semi-professional, or anything. Nearly 25% of those individuals are veterans that we've served, and nearly $6 million dispersed out in grants that provide equipment, recovery, all the different things that folks need to get through the recovery process. And then, the big thing to us is getting people back outdoors, reconnecting with community.
It's amazing. Yeah. Congratulations. By the way, it's amazing. And the impact that you've been able to have, it's no small feat, right? Like that's not without having to work hard and to put this together and to build the community, the organization. And a lot of people obviously helped you to do that, but it's worth noting that, you were able to help lead and grow this to something where you're able to help 500 people and provide them with the support they need to potentially change their lives, right? Like the impact, I think one of the things I want to highlight about these types of support for a lot of nonprofits that do this type of work, especially High Fives, is that something that may not seem like a huge deal to any normal able-bodied person, uh, with the right amount of support at the right time in someone's life, uh, these goals can really help set people on the right track and potentially be life-changing, right? And so, um, 500 lives that have been impacted and changed is pretty amazing.
Yeah, and I think, the biggest takeaway is, like, all these individuals have had life-changing injuries. And so how can we influence their life moving forward from a life-changing injury? And I think it really takes, you know, folks that have been there. Um, Folks that have, been at the bottom and have come back to the top, and they can share that experience with others. They can say, "Hey, I was you. I was there, and, like, I'm here now." It took this journey. I went from peak to valley, tried to go peak to peak, and missed it here and there. But this is the journey that it looked like for me. And I think, like, individuals at the beginning latch on to that because it helps them visualize what their life might look like. One, two, three. I think a common thing that you find in the spinal cord community is, like, how long you've been injured. How when was the last time you regained some sensation, or what was the last time you moved this, or I think that's always something that is brought up in those first couple early years. And then you always compare yourself to that other person. Oh, well, my friend over here, a year later, they started to get this back, and it starts to, it generates hope. And you know what? In that moment of life changing, hope is a really great drug. It's better than the things that they're pumping into you in the hospital system that are helping regulate and make sure you stay alive. But what's really going to keep you alive, driving forward, is that drug of hope. And I think that's something that we're really able to provide and, interject into someone in a moment of their life that, is more than just life changing. It's going to help them repurpose their life moving forward.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And in addition to that, I want to highlight a little bit of the work that you guys do and clarify that it's not just grants for individuals, but you've been able to create and maintain these relationships and communities of people over long periods of time with different events and getting people out and building a sense of camaraderie and so on and so forth. So you do a lot more than just providing grants with the foundation.
One of the programs that we do that I think doesn't always get the highlight because it's something that it's hard to scale, I think, or I don't know if scale is the right word. It's hard to replicate because it takes the right people. If you get hurt anywhere within 80 miles of Reno, Nevada, have a spinal cord injury, I will receive a text message from the hospital that says, new spinal cord injury patient, reach out for details. There's two doctors, there's two PM&R doctors that are on the floor that we have this program with. And it's funded by a local businessman because he believes in this more than anything in the world. He believes in peer mentorship. And so if someone gets hurt, within 48 hours, I will text back, get the details. And it's not like, oh, here's the information, it's Larry Johnson, he's blah, blah, blah. It's all HIPAA based, 50-year-old female, motorcycle accident, T12, incomplete, Asia B. That's usually what we're given. That I think that's exactly what we're given, those types of deals. So then there's 4 other peer mentors that work within our program that I'll reach out to. Sometimes it'll be myself, sometimes it'll be 4 others. But if that person gets hurt, they meet the match, we get them. Within 48 hours of accident, you will have someone that has had a spinal cord injury that's as much matched within our peer mentoring program to your injury. And that injury at that time is absolutely catastrophic to you and everyone around you. It's like chucking a rock into a pond, ripple, 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 ripple. It's all those ripples that come off that rock. And that's how that injury starts to affect people. And it starts all the way out. So if all of a sudden within 48 hours, you can talk to someone that gives you hope. I have seen recoveries, Derek, that medically do not make at all any type of sense. I have visited folks that have high level quadriplegic injuries, C3, C4, can't move anything below their chin, that are now re-walking, that are, 2 that are 110% recovered, which I know seems very, on the opposite end of, folks like myself and you who are on the opposite side of 100%. We always try to compare ourselves. Oh, I always say like, oh, I'm like 65% recovered. And I'm stuck there. Some folks have gone past it. But I think it comes from that initial idea of hope. And it's myself or 4 others that go in and say, hey, like, life's not over. One of the most amazing ones is about 8 months ago, an individual, high level, complete injury. So cord had been completely severed at C5, said, I'm good. I don't want this life. And the doctor said, hey, we've got an individual we'd like you to talk to. We brought in our high level peer mentor, a male who is just an absolute rock star at life, lives life to the fullest. You'd never even know he has a spinal cord injury from the adventures that he would tell you until you would actually see him. And he went in and he talked to this guy. And 2 weeks later, the guy and him are working out at the rehab facility together because he saw that life had more than just a purpose. Life had an entire, process of, what's possible, even though things no longer are possible for you to feel or to move or to do things. I think one of the best piece of advice is that I give to people is like, life will never be the same, but it will be awesome. And I look at that, and it really comes down to how you define that awesome. And it comes from, my injury. We'll use this one for example is, I met Dave Vobora through Richard Rawling, the TV star, who then I met Jeff Gum, who then I met you, and we took you surfing for the first time.
Yeah.
None of that would have happened if I didn't have a spinal cord injury. And like, you can take that in one of two ways. You can take it as, yeah, well, that sucks that you guys had to meet that way. Or you could take it as, we met because we were able to provide an opportunity for someone in a way through just connections of community. And I think that's like one of the biggest takeaways from this is like, it is all on how you decide to celebrate what awesome looks like. Yeah, it sucks that I can't frickin' hike. It sucks that like I can't travel and find, go to the normal store and just rent something. Everything has to be specialized. But at the same time, like, I don't know, there are things that I have gotten to do that I would never have gotten to do if I didn't have a spinal cord injury. I mean, my wife has a Lego. Like, who doesn't want a Lego?
And that's an incredibly powerful message to share with people, to provide them with that hope, especially after, in that time. And sounds like an incredible program that I think you certainly could replicate. It just take time and work and effort. And so
Well, it takes
that's
the
really
right
cool.
people. You have to find the right individual to be the leader within the area that then can summon a group of others to help support a basically stranger. How often in life does someone literally out of the blue give a stranger an hour of their time to make sure that that stranger now all of a sudden is part of your family? I mean, the people that I have gone to visit in the hospital, I'm in touch with, I've visited, I think in the last 4 years, I've visited 47 individuals with spinal cord injuries that have come to Reno. Like, I am still close with like 30 of them, like incredibly close with them. And I came into their lives, as a stranger and left an hour later as, one family sees me as like the Messiah. So it's like you enter as a stranger and it's like, but like how often, if you're just, hey, this person needs your help. Can you give them an hour? I got a lot to do. Like, I think that's the other thing, people are showing up when like you least expect someone to show up for you. And all of a sudden it resonates in a way that, these results that we've seen in recovery are, beyond medical, like fields of expertise of knowledge of how this happened.
Yeah. It's amazing. Yeah. And the impact you guys have is, it's far reaching, right? And in that community, the ripples, like you said, will continue to grow and make waves, which is awesome. So that's awesome. And so obviously you've been incredibly successful with the foundation, helping so many people over the past few years. And then along came a girl and, love to hear the story a little bit about, how you and Elena met and how it's been and what it's like to be a parent as well, because you guys have a unique situation and there's not a lot of information. And she was explaining a little bit about her experience to me, but would love to hear your thoughts on parenting and moving forward and new challenges and opportunities.
Oh, you mean the book that's not written for two disabled people to raise a child on their own together? Yeah, I was looking for that one. That one hasn't popped. That isn't in the popular book.
I'm gonna
um,
call Jeff Bezos right now,
yeah.
ask him why it's not on Amazon. Yeah.
um, I met Elena back in 2010. She had just come back from Vancouver with 2 golds, a silver, and a bronze. She was the hottest thing in skiing, and she came to this event that was called Ski Tam, or it was called Ski Spec. I can't remember. That's either it was Ski Spec and it's Ski Tam now, or it was Ski Tam and it's Ski Spec now. They changed their name. Can't remember which one it is, but it's a fundraiser for the adaptive ski program for the U.S. Paralympic team, and it happens in Vail. I went there just to network, and I remember seeing her as she came in, and she just like took over the whole room, and she was just checking into the hotel, and I just was like, "Who is this person?" We became friends over the weekend, and then over the next 8 years, we just stayed close, as friends. Making sure she got support like she needed, and always just kind of being like a resource and a friend. And always seeing each other at surf events, ski stuff, just randomly. And then we were both speaking at an event in New York City in 2018, and it was just this right timing of people in their life when there were no commitments. And we it's funny, we had gone surfing the day before this big event, and we had all this surf gear, so we were getting it dropped off at Newark. And as we were getting dropped off at Newark airport on the curb, she was getting dropped off at a flight before me, and I got all our stuff out for her. And then I don't know, I just something about it, so I gave her a kiss, and ever since then we've been hanging out.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not too many people can say making out in Newark. So
It's definitely, not the sexiest airport. So
no, it's absolutely disgusting. It's the armpit of America.
easy now. I'm from the East Coast, but I like to make fun of Jersey too.
Are
I'm
you
from
from
Delaware.
Derek, where are you from originally on the East Coast?
Originally from Delaware. So
Where in Delaware?
Dover.
I've been to Dover. Elaine and I have both been to
Really?
Dover, actually. We went there to race a modified NASCAR at the Dover racetrack. Cool. They took one of the old Furniture Row cars. It's not Dr. Fauci. That's the guy that's telling everyone what to do. But Dr.
Fauci with an L.
Fauci. Yeah. There we go. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fauci. He's got this modified race car, and we got to go there, race it, have a blast, stay at the Dover Casino or whatever. I'm a ginormous NASCAR fan, so it was the greatest thing in the world to me. I actually just got back from Kansas. I was in Kansas all weekend for the race there, and having an absolute hoot of a good time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
There's not a lot going on in Dover, but we do have the Monster Mile, which is the NASCAR track. For any of you NASCAR fans, know that. And a lot of corn farms, some other stuff, but yeah, it's not bad. But Newark, New Jersey, I don't think anybody can claim that there's anything clean about that airport. But anyways, that's awesome. And so moving forward, you obviously have had a incredible journey together now as a couple, and became parents recently, which is another miracle and awesome. So what was that like leading up to having Gunner, and since then what's it been like?
Having Gunner, he's a hoot. Like, he definitely is testing two people that are usually testing other people. So it's definitely a good check for both of us. He's such a sweet boy. Elena is an absolute gold medal mom, not to try to use any competitive references, but I mean, she's been such a competitive performance-based athlete for such a period of her life. It's just so natural to see her be this incredible gold medal mom. She's really just always making sure Gunner is in a really safe place, and it allows me as a dad to just replicate what she does. She's a really great leader when it comes to parenting. There is no handbook, and like I said, there's no handbook for two disabled people to raise a kid. So to have that leader is really great, because I'll tell you what, I'll never forget, the moment you leave the hospital, for the first, we were there for, I think, almost 48 hours after he was born. And, they're so attentive, and they're so helpful. And I'm talking about the staff, and they're so amazing. But the thing that's so bizarre to me still is, you just leave the hospital with a kid, and the only thing they care about is if the car seat's okay. Not like, parents, are you good? And so that has always been like, kind of this funniest thing for us, is like seeing that, but then, having Elena just, be this absolute just maternal leader. And it's natural because, she was raised by her grandparents, and her grandmother was this very strong, no emotions, all was, she said it how it was. And I think Elena took that style of leadership from her grandmother, but then probably, took the one thing that she always, wished she probably got a little more of, which is, that extra love, not the hard love, but the squishy love, I guess you call it. I don't know what you call it actually, but and I think that's why the way she mothers Gunner and the way I follow, because like I'm like, I'm not gonna replicate anything better than this. Like, let's get on board, bro. Like, this is the leader. Like, we're following her, and I'm okay with that because she's so amazing as a mom.
Yeah. Women are definitely the stronger sex for sure.
Really at
That's
times.
the same way with Mara, Mara. So we've had twins 4 years ago that just turned 4. And so we were in the hospital for 5 days because they were like, hey, you could probably leave early, but take advantage of the time, right? Like just
Yeah.
just get yourself ready and then, come home. And sure enough, it's like you're on your own, figure it out. And we had some support from our in-laws who came out and they were awesome and incredibly helpful. But you know, I followed the same approach and had the same philosophy, which was just try to help, follow the lead,
Yeah.
don't screw anything up, stay out of the way when you need to, do what you can. So, um, yeah, that's awesome.
So do you have two boys, two girls, or do you have the mix?
Yeah, 2 boys,
Two boys. Wow. What are their names?
Hudson and Hunter.
Oh, I love double H. Nice. And then with the last name Herrera, nice. They got some. Do they have? Is their middle name H's too? Are they triple H's?
No, no,
Okay.
they're not triple H. So,
Okay.
uh, yeah, I can't take any credit for that either. More picked the names. So she's like, she told me actually this is a funny story. So she said to me, she's like, yeah, I like Hudson and Hunter, but I might be able to be swayed. She just kind of like left a little opportunity, and so I kept like proposing things. No, 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 no. So like up until the point where like she's going into labor, and we still haven't like locked it in. I'm still thinking that like I can sway her opinion on changing the first names, and and then they come and they're out, and they're like, okay, what are the names? And she's like, you get to pick the middle names, and I'm like, oh man. And actually, like when we started, I picked one and then changed my mind like 3 hours later and had them go back and like redo the paperwork and stuff. And so uh maybe it wasn't 3 hours. I don't know, maybe it was a day later. But yeah, it was fun times.
Uh the Well, so wait, you pick some names, then you pick different ones. What were the original ones, if you don't mind me asking?
So I think the first one was so Hudson, actually I can't remember if it was Hudson or Hunt. I think it was Hudson. uh his middle name was Oliver
Okay.
before, uh and then we changed it to Mattis, and then Hunter's middle name is James, and so that was my middle name too, and passed down from the family. So it worked. And so yeah, it's Hudson Madison and Hunter James.
Sounds like two presidential candidates right there.
Yeah, yeah. We'll
um,
see.
yeah,
Author,
Gunner's
used car salesman,
yeah,
something.
yeah.
We'll
Gunner's
see.
full name is Gunner Owen Alexander Tuscany, and it was
Nice.
we just we went for it. We gave him the initials GOAT, and he definitely lives it to the fullest, I think too.
It's epic. That's awesome. Awesome. And so, what's next for you and Elena and Gunner? What's the future look like, or what kind of goals, or what are you working to achieve?
We're working on, I think, like the next big things is we're working on potentially a kind of a new headquarters for the foundation potentially. That's one thing that we've started to mingle our hands around. And there's that second cup of coffee I need. And then the other is, I think there's for us is like, how do we integrate more inclusion? And what I mean by that is, how do we make more inclusion for the sport so that they get more support? So how can we create more opportunities to get people involved? How can we get more adaptive surfers? How can we get more adaptive bikers? How can we get more adaptive skiers? the one thing that we're starting to see is the individuals participating in all those sports. There's really good numbers, but the age continues to increase and the group size doesn't grow, meaning that
Mm.
there is no real rollover, as in we don't lose people, but we definitely are not growing the sports in the way that we're hoping to. So I think that's a big mission, is to how can we both help to grow sports so that there's more inclusion, more opportunities, and more visibility within the categories of sports that we're really passionate about. I just think that's like the biggest goal, is just like getting more people out there and like, getting rid of the stigmatism of like, what is that piece of equipment? What does that person do? Oh my God, like, what is that? Like, no, like, I think the best piece of advice that I've been given, and it came from a conversation we had with the national parks, is, when approaching an individual with a disability, regardless if you think they have one or not, is if you lead with curiosity instead of accusation, you're going to see a such more impactful conversation or understanding of what's really going on. And I think that's something like that Elaine and I both believe in and both really want to try to get out there to others, is like, lead with curiosity first. Cause like, we see it a lot in surfing. Elena and I both use a paddle. And we like you, when you went surfing, on a wave ski, Derek. Um, and when you're around like Jeff Gum and Dave Vabora, like you're fine. Like nothing's gonna happen to you. But then when you go and you're not around that, there's a lot of hatred towards a paddle. And it's not that
Uh,
we're like choosing to be there. This is how we serve. And we're not saying like, hey, we're trying to offend you because we have a paddle. We're trying to say like, hey, like, this is because of my disability, the way for me to be out here. And 98% of the time, I've had one incident where it wasn't, but 98% of the time when you're able to tell that person who's, you kook or whatever they're yelling to you, um, the situation, they're like, oh my God, like, wow, I'm so stoked you're out here. And then they're usually like, yo, come with me. Like, I'll block for you. Like, I'll get you waves, like, whatever, they're always your best friend then. But if that conversation, instead of the like, get out of here, they said like, hey man, like what's going on? Like, why are you using that? You're like, oh well, I'm disabled, I'm paralyzed from a ski accident, and this is the only way I can surf. Like, oh my God, like tell me more, and it's like, it's so bizarre. It's like curiosity, lead with it, and you'll see such a better just outcome.
yeah, I've seen that, and that's probably one of the most frustrating things I think I've experienced as well. Is a lot of people, like to label it or call it whatever weird names like ableism or whatever. Like, but at the same time, if you're just interested, like like if you actually just convey a genuine interest in learning, it's not offensive, right? It's a conversation, right? And I have no issues like with people asking me questions and telling them the story and telling and whatever, explaining answers to them. Because if we don't, right, then people are never going to know, right? They're never going to learn. They're never going to be educated, and once they do, they'll probably remember it, right? They'll remember that for the rest of their life, and that compassion that can stem from that can move forward and carry on.
Because like the number of occurrences that you're going to have with a piece of adaptive equipment is going to be rare, because they're not high volume pieces of items. And so if you don't take the time to try to understand, or at least get an understanding of what something is, then you're going to always be, what you should have led with at the beginning. You're going to be curious. So just lead with curiosity and like see what happens. And you'll find too, like there are very few angry, like adaptive athletes, is in my opinion. Like I have not met very many adaptive athletes that are not willing to share their story. And guess what? Most likely, if you ask some of them, you're have an hour, because they're gonna talk your ear off. Like there are some folks that want to share everything with you the second you ask, and that's okay too. It's just
Yeah.
like, just see what happens. I think that's such a big thing.
Yeah. So awesome. It's so amazing. And really excited to see you guys succeed in the future with all the goals that you're setting to achieve and continue to help more people with the foundation. And appreciate making time to come on today.
Yeah, man, it was so good catching up with you, and I look forward to catching up more with you in person. And what's going on with your device? Like, what's going on in that world too?
Great question. So It's been a bit of a challenge this year with dealing with the FDA. And so for Eurodov Medical, the bladder management device that we've developed, we've done through multiple clinical studies now and just working to get it on the market, hopefully going through the final processes and tightening everything up and wordsmithing a lot to ensure that we meet all the requirements and the standards established for, for a commercial medical device. And so we've been doing that, working with experts to get it there. And so that's
Yeah.
what we've been up to. And it's been good. So it's been a long journey, but we're getting close. And the feedback thus far has been good. A lot of the people are excited about it, enjoy it. All the people that have been in the study have, had positive things to say. So we're optimistic about being able to help people and help impact people. And then once we do, I feel like I'm on the journey and have been on this path that this will be my new life mission, right? To continue to try to innovate and develop products that can help people. And so, hopefully we'll be able to figure other things out because there's a lot of unmet needs, especially for people like us.
I think the one thing that's like so bizarre to people is like, you break a bone and there's a very clear process of what that looks like to recover. 4 weeks, cast, come out, little PT. Not only is there no real clear path for recovery on the spinal cord injury, there's also the additional items that come along with it, your bowel, your bladder, and a bunch of other things on top of that. But, speaking to the bladder specifically is what I think you're doing is absolutely incredible, because if someone doesn't have the correct insurance or doesn't understand how to work the insurance system, they have to pay $18 to go pee at least 6 times a day. So that means that every single day, $108 is responsible for that individual to go pee, a necessity to live. Because if not, you will go toxic. There's so many complications if your bladder is not to be released. And there is, and for me, I applaud you, Derek, on so many levels, because it took someone to have this. It took someone with the incredible insight and drive to say, this is not right. This is so wrong. We can do this. I'm sorry. I do not believe that we have not solved paralysis when we have this in our hand. 15 years ago, there was like 100 things that you'd have to have in a pile that all of this can do now. And it is so wrong that we think as a society that we should be racing to space and spending all that money and not solving human simplicity medical needs so that people can, have the best quality of life possible. And what you're on the path of solving is only a small crack in the door of the things that I believe you're going to help solve, because it unfortunately took someone like yourself to have this injury, to see the problems, to actually say, this is fucking wrong. I'm sorry to swear, but that's the honest truth. And I absolutely applaud you for what you're doing, because there's so many things wrong, but this is one that I can really highlight specifically with you. That I applaud you for what you're doing.
Thanks, man. It's been a long journey. And like you said about new missions, new purpose, new identities, like the literally had that experience, right, of just trying to solve a problem and would have had no clue, never would have been on this path ever with medical device innovation or entrepreneurship had I not had this injury. But that's exactly what happened. I went through the process, had this injury, started dealing with the challenges associated with it. And that's literally the conversation I had with a urologist after I was having these complications was, hey, doc, it's 2013. There's got to be a better way. He's like, no, there's nothing on the market. And so like I just became obsessed with trying to solve the problem. And then as I was still hesitant, like testing the waters before I made the leap fully to commit to pursuing this, kind of found myself at a crossroads, right? And asked a simple question, which was, of all the paths we can choose and do things and try to be successful, whether it's in the corporate environment, the nonprofit environment, like as I'm trying to reinvent myself, find my next job, right? Ask myself a simple question, which was, of the things that I can do, is there something in the world that only I can do? And what I thought was, given my experience and my background and the injury I now have, I have insight into these conditions and these problems and can try to help develop solutions that other people aren't doing or aren't willing to do or don't understand or don't have the knowledge to accomplish. And so that's what's led me down this path. And it's been a long and arduous path, but it's it never gets old. Like I never, question the path because it, I'm so passionate about it. And because, I also realize I feel the weight of it, where if we fail, we're not going to be successful in helping all these people, and someone else may never do it again. Right. And um, so I appreciate your kind words, and we're getting close. So we're getting close to hopefully helping a lot of people and then see what other problems we can solve.
Well, I got a huge database ready for you, so let us know, Derek.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, cool. Well, appreciate your time, Roy. It's been amazing having the opportunity to come and connect with you and Elena and Gunner.
Yeah, Gunnar
As
jumped
he
in on
made
Elena's for
appearance
a couple
earlier.
minutes there too.
So it was awesome, and look forward to seeing you guys soon. But truly appreciate your time, and thank you for joining me here on Forward. This has been an episode with me, Derek Herrera, and my guest today, Roy Tuscany. So appreciate your time, and look forward to seeing you soon.